Good evening. That will be the signification of the presence of my spirit. And over here on this side, you get Frank Felt, poet and storyteller, in rhyme, most of the time. Allow me to introduce myself. My name starts with an A. Allow me to introduce myself. My name ends with an O. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Alexander Cagliostro. Watch out for the pings. Watch out for the pings. No genital. The eunuch. He wore a short tunic, so the harem ladies could lick his scar while he smoked the Sultan's cigars and dreamed of days gone far when he'd had a big cigar instead of a scar. Then an evil spirit came and said that he could claim no genital soul, and in return he would indeed fill up no genital's hole. A magic member that would come and go from no genital's lap, and all he had to do was to make two fingers snap. Then the evil spirit got evil, and he said with an evil grin, I think I'll let you try it out. Kind of take it for a spin. And out of no genital's groin came a huge pulsating member, and all of the harem ladies fainted after twice, and said later they couldn't remember. 40 in a row. Not even a dip. Had no genital soul hanging on the lip. But the Sultan solved the problem, for he had watched from a peephole. He cut off no genital's fingers and saved no genital's soul. Thank you. Black Wolf was an Indian with blood on his lance, pierced the vaginas of 40 virgins. He never even took off his pants. He was a mighty red stud with lots of red blood, and he was always called back for more. For he had a hammer that didn't even stammer, was a loin ripper that was made of stone. Then one night, oh what a sight, came loose Lizzie, a snatch of renown. They did it on a bar by a burning cigar, and the bottles watched from the shelf. Well, come on, said Lizzie, you're not making me dizzy. Can you speed it up a bit? Black Wolf said, sure. and his ass was a blur. And Lizzie's eyes rolled in her head. They thought she was a goner, and he was still on her. For now, he had the fever in his blood. Then Lizzie came alive and said, "Man alive, hey Black Wolf, you are some kind of fuck." They settled in to a nice steady rhythm, started enjoying themselves. Then Lizzie raised her hips, and Black Wolf cashed his chips. And the gusher overflowed on the bar. They each said to each other, "Oh son, oh mother, families do it together." Well, I was 500 miles out of nowhere, scratching and a-yanking and a-pulling my hair. I had a nymphomaniac that was half drunk, and 100 pounds of cocaine in my trunk. Good time. I looked in my mirror, I saw a red light flash as I slammed my foot down on the gas. Heard sirens wail on down the road as the half-drunk nympho lifted my load. 100 mile an hour, doing just fine. 110 will have a drink of wine. At 120 will have a little snort. 130 will push off the cord. 140 it just won't do it. 150 will engine bloom. Now I've got them slow-moving blues, doing 3 miles an hour on prison shoes. Kind of like a little mint. This little story about wills and estates. The alignments for the consignments for the wealth of the dead, and the alignments for the consignments were brought to a head. Now, Dickie McAllister, he thought he was a scam, but compared to his sister, he was just flim-flam. For Monique was a raven-haired beauty with a killer for her soul, and she was looking to put one up Dickie's bum-hole. For when the will was read, there was a little catch-all that should there be a decease within 30 days, the survivor would take all. Now this little phrase had Dickie in a sweat, and he called for his guns and he hit the deck. But Monique, she was patient, as she knew his sexual route, and she sent in a pussy just to flush him out. Now Dickie, in his terror, was paranoid of all. Then he transformed from pussy whipped into an hombre with big balls. The unsuspecting pussy, who was sent to entrap, caught 3 slugs in the belly, whap, whap, whap. Then Dickie, he went looking for his sister's door. He'd been christened in killing, and he was looking for more. But Monique was upstairs when she saw Dickie come, and she loaded up her pistol with a clip of dum-dums. She gave out a scream, and she gave out a cry, and when Dickie looked up, he caught a dum-dum in the eye. Then a strange twist of fate. Dickie's pistol dropped on a grate, sent a bullet through her pate. First rate twist of fate. And the little-known cousin came in and picked up all the money and took off for Brazil with his most recent honey. And the alignments for the consignments for the wealth of the dead. And the alignments for the consignments were brought to a head. This is the one and only spiritual ping. This is a spiritual ping. Well, I was thinking about my baby on a sunny Sunday fine, and my brain cells were walking up the pathways of her mind. I joined her spirit in flight, and we soared on a plane. It was an astral airline with the runways in our brain. And we soared through the heavens and into a space where the mind could expand and barriers were erased. And you could watch the thoughts fly out of your head. For in the astral land, words are not said. Communication by thought and limitless sight make the sun rise up in the middle of the night. Fly at speeds unknown to mortal man. Fly right through the sun without getting a tan. Create musical notes 9,000 feet high that light up when you hit them in your mind's eye. Astral travel, let your mind unravel, let your spirit soar into space. Astral travel, let your mind unravel, let your spirit soar into space. Thank you. This particular poem is called The Poet and the Shaman. The voodoo priest came in from the east, and he was looking to make a score. And the wicked warlock had his gun on cock and was headed through the spirit world door. The laid-back little poet, as of yet he didn't know it, but he had a part to play. And the sensitive shaman, whose powers were alarming, had come to save the day. They were looking for an ancient chest. It had been forged from liquid gold. And inside the golden chest were 500 magic scrolls. The power of these scrolls was a magic clean and pure. And you could do whatever it was your imagination could conjure. But if the scrolls were tainted, they became as evil as the black. And the first one to touch them was the one that they would back. The voodoo priest sent out a black wall studded with voodoo spikes. He was looking to impale the warlock, but the warlock had him in his sights. He unleashed a shot of magic from the barrel of his gun, and the voodoo priest was taken in the chest and smashed into the sun. The laid-back little poet had been wandering around. He stumbled into the spirit world. And all of a sudden, he found that his mind was in a whirl. He felt he was being guided by emanations from the chest of gold. He could hear the scrolls say to him, "Come and save our souls." The sensitive shaman who was sent to protect the one was working on a strategy to deal with the warlock's gun. He built himself a magic mirror, projected his image in the middle of the glass. And when the warlock fired his gun, it deflected and fried his ass. It was the destiny of the poet and the shaman to open the golden chest, for all thoughts of evil in their minds had long been laid to rest. They were in a spiritual maze, a world of mystical light, and they knew if they were to find the golden chest, they would have to see with second sight. Then they saw a beautiful ocean, an ocean of musical notes, and islands of musical instruments on the ocean were afloat. Then the sky filled up with lips and hands, and upon the instruments did descend, and the ocean's waves were a symphony that would never ever end. Then they saw a magical forest, flowers and trees of mystical light, and in the center of the forest was a crystal of untold mystical might. Mountains upon mountains of magic crystals compacted into one mighty stone. It protected the golden chest that sat on it all alone. The poet and the shaman gazed in awe. They were mesmerized by the sight, and their spirits went out of their bodies and flew into the golden light. Then the poet's spirit opened the lid, for he was the chosen one. And the shaman's spirit gazed in wonderment, like the poet had uncovered the sun. Then the scrolls floated upward gently, and then they began to whirl. They weaved a tapestry of peace and love and wrapped it around the world. Well, I had dynamite in Dallas, and nitro in New York. I blew the lids off 30 banks, I popped them like a cork. Well, I was traveling through a little jerk-water town when a red light flashed in my mirror. Well, I pulled right over to the side of the road and I said to myself, oh dear. Well, this big fat belly propped itself on my window and a voice said, boy, I'm gonna roust your tail, because the county coffers are pretty empty and there's lots of room in my jail. I said, well, I'm very sorry, sir, but I wasn't going too fast. He said, well, I certainly know that, boy, but the county needs the cash. He said, that will be $200 or 90 days in the slammer. Well, I reached for my pocket with my left hand and my right hand cocked the hammers. I handed him the cash and I handed him the lead. Both hammers came down and I blew off his head. I salted away some pork, yeah, for the winter months to come. I salted away some pork, yeah, with my little sawed-off shotgun. While Sarah married the pump handle, no water for a week. For the unenlightened amongst you. Sarah got the thing stuck so goddamn tight that she couldn't take a leak. It all started one day when Sarah was walking down the road to the next town. She'd been kicked out of the previous one for various sexual escapades with various public officials. When said ladies of various public officials stopped into the chambers for an afternoon spot of tea. And Sarah left by the open window, clutching her dress. In the late afternoon, found her walking down this road. And it was a hot afternoon. And she was passing by this farmyard and thought she'd stop in and get herself a drink of water. And Sarah saw the pump handle. And it was a long, smooth, highly polished shaft of black oak with a big knob on the end. Sarah just went nutso. And she took a run at that pump handle. And about 10 feet away, she jumped up in the air and she spread her legs out wide and she hollered, "Hallelujah!" Sarah's brain was jolted a little by the impact. And she just kind of hung there. She hung on with both hands there. Sarah married the pump handle, no water for a week.